You're told debt is a problem, a burden, something to get rid of as fast as possible. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Debt isn't just tolerated by the modern economy. It is the modern economy. Right now, trillions of dollars don't exist as cash, gold, or anything you can touch. They exist as promises, IOUs, numbers that say someone owes someone else. And those promises are treated as some of the safest, most valuable assets on Earth. That sounds backwards. So let's talk about how we got here, and why it matters more now than ever. For most of history, debt was personal and dangerous. You owed your neighbor grain. You owed a merchant silver. If you couldn't pay, you lost land, freedom, or worse. Debt was a liability, a weakness. Then something strange happened. As economies grew, trade expanded, and governments needed money fast, debt stopped being just a personal problem. It became a tool. Kings borrowed to fight wars. Cities borrowed to build ports and roads. Banks borrowed to lend even more. And slowly, debt changed character. Instead of asking, "Can this be paid back tomorrow?" the system began asking, "Can this be passed on?" That shift changed everything. Fast forward to the modern world. If you hold a government bond, you are not holding cash. You're holding a promise that someone, somewhere, will pay you later. Yet that bond is treated as an asset. It can be traded, used as collateral, and relied on by banks, pension funds, and entire countries. In many cases, it's considered safer than money itself. Why? Because modern finance doesn't run on repayment. It runs on confidence. Let's simplify this. When a government issues debt, it doesn't plan to pay it off like a credit card. It plans to roll it over. Old debt gets replaced with new debt, again, and again, and again. As long as investors believe the system continues, the debt keeps its value. The moment that belief cracks, everything shakes. Here's the part that feels almost absurd. The global financial system is built on the idea that the safest thing you can own is someone else's obligation. Banks don't just hold cash, they hold debt. Pension funds don't just save money, they buy debt. Central banks don't print money and walk away. They buy massive amounts of government debt and hold it as a core asset. Debt isn't a side feature, it's the foundation. This is where the math quietly gets uncomfortable. Global debt is now well over 3 times the size of the entire world economy. Not 3 times the money supply, 3 times everything we produce in a year. And that's not a bug. It's how the system grows. New debt creates new money. That money fuels spending, investing, and asset prices, which creates the justification for even more debt. It's elegant and fragile. Here's the irony. We're constantly warned about debt like it's a ticking time bomb, but the moment debt growth slows too much, markets panic. When people borrow less, economies slow. When governments spend less, growth weakens. When debt creation pauses, recessions appear. So debt is both the risk and the lifeline. That's why crises feel so strange. During a financial panic, investors don't run away from debt. They run towards certain kinds of it. U.S. government bonds, German bonds, assets backed by states powerful enough to keep the system alive. Even when those states are deeply in debt themselves. It's not logic. It's hierarchy. Some debt is treated as almost untouchable. Other debt is disposable. And this is where the stakes get real. If debt is the world's most important asset, then rising interest rates aren't just a policy decision. They're a stress test. Higher rates mean old debt becomes harder to roll over. Governments pay more just to stand still. Companies feel pressure before profits even fall. Households notice it last, but feel it hardest. The system doesn't collapse when debt is high. It collapses when debt stops flowing smoothly. And that raises a quiet, unsettling question. What happens when the asset everyone depends on depends entirely on belief? Debt works as long as the future looks stable enough to trust. But trust isn't permanent. It's renewed every day. So the next time you hear that debt is out of control, remember this. The world isn't trying to escape debt. It's trying to manage it without breaking the illusion that holds it together. And the real risk isn't that we owe too much. It's what happens if we ever decide we don't believe in those promises anymore.